take effect. The changes still are not coming fast enough for some in Congress or the military. They noted that the rules still ban women from serving as infantry, armor and special operations forces, which are considered the most dangerous combat jobs. Instead, they reflect what has been happening for the past 10 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They will allow women to perform many jobs they already are doing, but in smaller units, closer to the fighting and once considered too dangerous. The new rules will allow women formally to work in those jobs at the battalion level. Major General Gary Patton, Principal Director for Military Personnel Policy, supported the decision.
When I look at it as a former infantry battalion commander, I wish I had the opportunity to bring women in my battalion. It expands the talent pool.
Yes.
And so these positions of intel officer, intel analyst, supply officer, and so forth, will now expand the talent pool where now you have all qualified people, regardless of gender, being able to, compete or be assigned to those key positions in infantry battalion.
While the rules will not open up the Navy SEALs or the Army Delta Force commando units to women, some defense officials have said the military eventually may be open to that. Former Defense Secretary Robert Gates told North Carolina Reserve Officer Training Corps students in 2010 that at some point there would be careful steps in that direction. The Military Leadership Diversity Commission said the Pentagon should face in additional career fields and units that women could be assigned to.
Pakistan refutes media reports suggesting a meeting between Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani and Afghan Taliban representatives had been planned in Qatar during his 3-day visit, which concluded a day ago. According to Pakistan's Foreign Ministry spokesman Abdul Basit, the visit only focused on bilateral relations between Pakistan and the Gulf state. Some media reports quote unnamed Pakistani officials as saying that Gilani would discuss the Taliban office in Qatar and their talks with the United States. Pakistan's Foreign Ministry spokesman Abdul Basit added that neither a meeting between Gilani and representatives of Afghan Taliban was held in Qatar nor any such meeting was in the schedule. Abdul Basit further said that Gilani's visit to Doha exclusively focused on bilateral relations with Qatar through regional situation and peace, though regional situation and peace in Afghanistan were also involved in the meeting between Prime Minister and the Qatari officials. The Ireland's Foreign Ministry and the chairperson in office of the OSCE says a closer partnership between the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and the United Nations is vital. The 56-member OSCE is the world's largest regional security grouping.
Eamon Gilmore, Ireland's Foreign Minister and the chairperson in office of the OSCE, told the Security Council meeting that the two institutions share core principles and common values that can be applied to numerous security challenges. He cited the work of the OSCE mission in Kosovo as the first example of where the bloc had become an integral part of an operation led by the UN. In his address to the Council, Gilmore outlined OSCE's priorities for 2012, including promoting internet freedom, continuing its election observation activities, strengthening its conflict prevention capacities, fighting corruption, and setting up efforts to tackle transnational threats such as terrorism, the illicit drug trade, and cybercrime. Gilmore said the regional organization would pursue ways to make progress towards lasting settlement of conflicts.
Telecom operator Watania launches a prepaid double bonanza. Watania said the promotion targets the doubly prepaid broadband customers and awards the respective customers with free credit worth over 50,000 rupiah and additional megabytes. Senior Executive Digital Media Ahmed Zarir said the prepaid double bonanza stands out from the rest of the Watania promotions as it awards huge sums of free credit and megabytes. Watania said 12 customers would receive free credit while 12 others would receive free megabits on a daily basis. Also, free credit and megabytes worth of 300 rupiah would be awarded to the top 20 customers with the most number of recharges throughout the week. The chairman of a meeting of the Eurozone finance ministers says fresh conditions will be attached to a $170 billion bailout for Greece. Jean-Claude Juncker said the Greek parliament would now have to pass a package of cuts and reforms on Sunday.
In addition to the EU bailout, Greek politicians will have to find an extra $432 million savings for 2012. Greek unions had already called for a 48-hour strike beginning on Friday in opposition to the measures. Juncker, the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, also said Greek political leaders would have to give strong political assurances that they will continue to implement reforms after a general election due in April. He further welcomed assurances provided by the Greek government that all the necessary elements will be put in place in the coming days. He said the conditions would need to be fulfilled before Eurozone finance ministers reconvene on Wednesday. EU Economic Affairs Commissioner Olli Rehn said that Eurozone countries were also seriously considering creating a new separate account for Greece which would block a portion of state revenues to guarantee the repayment of bailout loans. Greece is trying to negotiate the bailout from the EU and International Monetary Fund.
Canada and China reached government deals in uranium exports and other sectors as the two countries deepen trade ties. Canada said it would allow the sale of uranium to China for energy generation. Canadian businesses also signed deals with Chinese enterprises worth $3 billion in Beijing. The Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper's delegation is on a 4-day visit to China. The trip is aimed at attracting Chinese investment in Canadian natural resources as well as shifting the focus of energy sales towards Asia. Chinese exports fell in January, the first decline in more than 2 years. It now raises fresh concerns about the impact of global slowdown on its economy.
Exports fell 0.5% from a year earlier amid sluggish global demand. Shipments were also hurt as factories were shut during the lunar year. Meanwhile, imports dipped 15.3%, raising fears about slowing domestic demand. China has been trying to boost domestic consumption in a bid to offset slowing exports and rebalance its economy. Analysts said while the closure of establishment during the Chinese New Year affected the numbers, the decline could not be attributed to the festival alone. They said the bigger than expected drop, especially in imports, was worrying as it gave an indication of slowing growth. Earlier this month, the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing reported that the import index for January fell to 46.9 from 49.3 in previous month, showing slowing demand at home. Despite these numbers, analysts said the dip was likely to be short-lived and imports may start to rise in the coming months. The export sector has been key to China's economic growth in the past few years as global firms have turned to Beijing to take advantage of its low-cost manufacturing. However, a slowdown in the US and the Eurozone, which are two of the biggest markets for Chinese goods, has seen the pace of growth of shipments slow in recent months. The debt crisis in the Eurozone and high rate of unemployment in the US have hurt consumer confidence and detented demand for Chinese goods.
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization reports that the global food prices rose overall last month for the first time in 6 months, demonstrating the volatility of international food markets. The FAO Food Price Index rose by 4 points or nearly 2% to a measure of 214 points in January, with the price of oil increasing the most, followed by cereals, sugar, dairy products and meat. This is the first such increase since July last year, and the index still stands 7% below its position of January 2011. Abdulrazak Basain, a senior grains economist with the FAO, said there was no single or clear explanation behind the rebound in food prices, with different reasons applying to different commodities. The oil and fats price index rose by 3% due to mainly stronger import demand from palm and soy oils, along with a seasonal decline in palm oil production. The price of all major cereals, with the exception of rice, rose last month, with maize prices jumping by 6%. The cereal price rise was driven mostly by market concerns about weather conditions affecting crop productions this year in several major producing regions. young footballer Ali Fasir, who was injured in a practice match between New Radiant and the national team, raised